Hello students, welcome to this new module. In this particular module, we are going to discuss about the unifying features of archegonites, transition to land habit and alternation of generation. So we told we will be talking about unifying features of archegonites. So what are these archegonites? Archegonites are the group of primitive plants which bear the female reproductive organ known as the archegonium. You can see here, this is the archegonium. This is the female gametophyte or the female gamete that is responsible for fertilization, that is used in fertilization. So how does this archegonium looks like? It is a flax-shaped structure. It has a swollen base and an elongated neck. The neck is composed of the neck cells. Inside the venter rise the venter canal cell and the egg. Both the structure are covered by a sterile jacket. In some liverworts, a thin cup-like or sac-like protective envelope of one cell thickness develops after fertilization around the archegonium. Bryophyta, Pteridophyta and Gymnosperms, these three members has the female sex organ known as archegonium. Bryophyta had similarity with the algae due to its thyroid body, but since its reproductive organ is the archegonium, it was placed amongst pteridophyte and gymnosperm. Here you can see that archegonium in three different members. Here in Funaria, this is the particular shape of the archegonium. Here in case of Lycopodium and here in gymnosperm or in Cycas. So all these three together are known as the archegonites. In Bryophyta, the archegonia are placed at the top of the plant thallus and in some hornworts it is embedded. In case of pteridophyte, the particular archegonia remains embedded near the apical notch, and in gymnosperm the archegonium are formed after pollination in female conifer cones. Talking about development of archegonium, this archegonial development although similar but it vary in few details. In Bryophyte, we have three examples. The first one is in Rixia. The archegonial development occurs acropetally from the dorsal median furrow. In case of Markensia, it occurs in the archegoniophore, and in Funaria, the archegonia develops in the main stem of the bunch being surrounded by archegonial shoots. In Pteridophyte, in the genus Lycopodia, the sporangia begin to develop when sporophyll is still composed of embryonic cells. In Selaginella, archegonium is formed from megaspores. In case of gymnosperms, it is slightly different. In gymnosperm, a single megaspore forms the female gametophyte within the nucellus. In case of Cycas, the archegonia is present inside a depression known as archegonial chamber. In case of Pinus, the archegonia develops from the apex of the female gametophyte, and in Netum, the development of female gametophyte occurs from the tetrasporic cell. Here I have just given a generalized form of development of the archegonia. It started with the archegonial initial, which was further divided into archegonial mother cell and the stalk cell. Further division took place and ultimately this mature archegonia was formed, which is a multicellular structure and it looks somewhat flax-shaped. Now talking about the unifying characters. Archegonites are related to the Chlorophyceae or green algae or Chara. The germination of the egg, which is a globular multicellular structure, resembles the sporophytes of similar liverworts. According to some scientists, the sexual organ of these archegonites are homologous with plurilocular gametangia. Heteromorphic alteration of generation with distinct gametophytic and sporophytic generation are seen. The morphological reduction of sexual or gametophytic phase was evident from the life cycle. The presence of chloroplast containing chlorophyll A, B and carotene. Male gametes are flagellated and motile in bryophytes, pteridophytes and in gymnosperms except in Pinus. With female gamete is non-motile. A cuticle is present and stomatas are there for gaseous exchange. Collenchyma or scalenchyma develops to support the erect habit. The spore dispersal mechanism was very efficient in this group. Heterogamy, that is production of two different type of gametes, evolved. Gametes are produced and protected by specialized structure called antheridia and archegonia. Multicellular embryos formed which are retained and protected inside the female reproductive body during its development. So here we end with the general characters of the archegonites. Now we'll be talking about the transition to land habit. The transition to land habit is a very important event in the evolution of plants. Previously, the Earth atmosphere was not suitable for any sort of growth, and most plants that we see in aquatic environment were aquatic plants. Slowly, this aquatic plant colonized the land. How they colonized? Obviously, certain changes took place. Firstly, there was formation of the soil, the climatic conditions, the environment, moisture, humidity, everything was suitable to have plants on land. So, there were certain important changes that took place in the plants. We will be talking about all this. The first very change that took place was the cells which helped in nutrition uptake or water uptake. The second, the plants needed to be protected from desiccation. Third, there was an elaboration of the sporophytic phase and reduction in the gametophytic phase. There was some anchorage mechanisms and also mechanical support was needed for its erect growth. So we will be talking about all this slowly. The first thing which we will be talking is the development of special cells of water and nutrient uptake. According to two scientists, Kendrick and Kane, the elongated cells which are organized along the length of the plants, these were the water conducting tissues, and these cells slowly was organized into a particular tissue. The water was transferred from the base to the erect habitat with the help of these water conducting cells. Some of these particular water conducting cells had certain thickenings. Thickening occurs differentially to avoid cell being collapsed, and these thickenings can be helical, annular, reticulate or may have scalariform pitting. In latter times, advanced tracheids evolved, and in this tracheids we found a thickened lignin containing secondary wall along with the cellulosic primary wall was formed. Pits were present in the side and end of the cells where the secondary wall is absent, and this pit helped in the flow of water efficiently from one tracheid to the next. Let's now see this particular figure. This is just a representation of what I just told. This was in case of the water conducting tissue in the primitive plant. This is the simple water conducting tissue. It only have a single primary wall, and this primary wall is formed of cellulose. This was giving little support to the plant. Slowly, along with this primary wall, some rings of lignin was seen. So these lignified tissues were able to provide some support to the plant. Ultimately, the tracheids were formed having a primary cellulosic wall and a secondary lignified wall. Along with that, peats are present at the end of the particular tissue. So this gives increased structural support, and this particular thing is common in all vascular plants. Coming to the second thing, that is the plant needed to be protected against desiccation. In aquatic environment, ample water was present, so there was no need of having any mechanism to control water loss from the plant body. But as they evolved to the land, the necessity of these structures was needed. The first thing that was formed was a cuticle. In the upper layer of the epidermis, or we can say in the upper layer of any export portion, a thick waxy layer of cuticle was formed that covered and impregnated the wall to reduce water loss. Recently, it became clear that a specific P450 enzyme created a phenol-enriched cuticles that protects against desiccation. It provided stiffness for erect growth and allowed complex plant organs to unfold. So with the formation of the cuticle, it hampered with the gaseous exchange. Now gaseous exchange is very important for the plants. As a result, the stomata was formed. The origin of stomata was approximately 400 million years ago, and this provided exchange of gases between the plant and the environment. So this is the structure of the stomata with two guard cells and the subsidiary cells that are present. Now, development of sporopollenin. The spores are the most important thing, because with the help of this spore, it was possible to get its generation. So now the spores were developed with a special type of thing known as sporopollenin. So here it is just a representation of sporopollenin that we can see. This sporopollenin protected the spores from desiccation, and this desiccation resistant spores can travel to distant place in the land habit. Now we come to the another important aspect, mechanical support. Previously no mechanical support was needed, but as they slowly formed the erect habit, the mechanical support was mandatory. So, to attain maximum surface area of light perception and gaseous exchange, it resulted in the formation of the upright height. Earliest land plants had a short, wide stems with a photosynthetic rund just below the surface and hydrostatic tissue in the center. To attain a great height, it is necessary to have some specialized mechanical tissue between the photosynthetic rod and the hydrostatic tissue. Here in the picture, we can see that the first one is very thin, and the last picture we have a thick stem. So here we can see that there is an increase in the diameter of the stem. With the increase in the diameter of the stem, there is also an increase in the height. So if we look into the tissue differentiation, we will see that previously with simpler stem, small diameter, the tissues were also less. We just had photosynthetic rund or rind, we had the hydrostatic core and the water conducting tissue. This is a very simple structure. But slowly the structure got modified, and we can see there was a presence of this water conducting along with the mechanical tissue. They say that if this particular stem will attain a height above this line, only hydrostatic tissue won't be able to give it support. So presence of mechanical tissue was also necessary. This is just a relationship between the stem diameter and stellar construction as proposed by Nicholas in 1997. Another event that took place is the anchoring mechanism. Early plants also need to acquire a system to anchor them to the ground and enable them to obtain the mineral elements necessary for nutrition and water from the soil. Root system developed around 408 million years ago from the early Devonian. Let's see this picture. You can see these were the primitive plants. Slowly it evolved and the modern plants are being formed. You can see here that slowly the anchorage system or the roots have become elaborated. Not only in length but also their spreading have also increased. So this is how their anchoring mechanism was elaborate, and it also helped to keep this erect habit along with its canopy upright so that it do not fall off during extreme climatic conditions. Second is the development of specialized photosynthetic tissue in aerial system, that is leaf. We can see we have microphyllous leaf and megaphylous leaves. Leaves, as we know, were undoubtedly formed later in evolution because previously we have a leafless, naked central axis or the stem. It occurred from a single nation, and according to the nation theory, this is the way in which we have microphyllous leaves, and these are the megaphylous leaf. Another important thing that occurred due to this terrestrialization is the elaboration or development of reproductive mode that did not depend predominantly upon external water conditions. The first among them was the elaboration of the sporophytic and reduction in the gametophytic generation. Gametophytic stage is completely dependent on availability of water. Water was essential for survival of the gametophyte and transfer of the sperm to the egg, and also for the initial growth of the sporophytic embryo. Thus, in a constant moist environment with little desiccation stress, gametophyte was selected. But as it evolved in land, this gametophytic generation slowly got restricted, and there was an elaboration of the sporophytic phase. Neither the production nor the dissemination of the spores required water. We can have a look of this tree picture. In this first one, this is a life cycle of an aquatic plant. You can see here that the gametophytic phase is very much elaborated and the sporophytic phase is only restricted to the formation of the zygote. In case of bryophyte, which are known as the amphibians, here the gametophytic phase were although elaborate but sporophytic phase was also somewhat more than in the aquatic habitat. You can see here that the sporophytic phase has grown to some level. But in case of tracheophytes, we see that here the sporophytic phase here is dominant and the gametophytic phase is very much restricted to only to the formation of the gametes. Now the production of spores instead of gametes. Similar case, production of spore instead of gametes ensured that production is less water dependent. The spores are seen to have the tetrahedral arrangement. Another thing that occurred in terrestrial plant was the development of the zygote within the female gametophyte, and this was the reason to protect the zygote from the external environment. Here we can see very recently a homeobox transcription factor called BEL1 or BELL1 after dimerization with the knotted one like homeobox transcription factor led to the zygote retention and development of the diploid embryo. Now we will be talking about alteration of generation. So we saw that due to terrestrialization, certain important changes took place in aquatic plants, and these changes helped them to colonize successfully in the land habitat. When we talk of alteration of generation, we say it is a typical life cycle which is found in subsequent generation of individuals which alternate between the haploid and the diploid phases. The alteration of generation has several distinct features, and these distinct features are highly modified between species. In general, the generations alternate between the sporophytes which are capable of producing spores and the gametophyte which are producing the gametes. So when we say sporophyte, we mean a diploid multicellular stage in the life cycle of a plant. It develops from the zygote produced when a haploid egg cell is fertilized with a haploid sperm cell, and each sporophyte cell has a double set of chromosomes. All land plants have life cycle in which multicellular diploid sporophyte alternates with a multicellular haploid gametophytic phase. Here we see the various steps that is followed in the alteration of the generation. We will be talking about this with the help of this picture. First one is a sporophyte, which is a 2N phase or a diploid phase. This sporophyte is undergoing meiosis, and after meiosis it is producing spores. The spores produced are haploid. The spores are now germinating and they are now forming the antheridium and the archegonium. The antheridium is then forming the sperms and the archegonium is forming the egg. Fusion is taking place, the help or fertilization is taking place, and this is forming a zygote which is a 2N stage. As I told you, this zygote is retained within the gametophyte which is N. Now this zygote will slowly germinate and it will form a complete sporophytic plant. Here is what I just told. This is the whole life cycle or whole alternation of generation. In pteridophyte, a certain distinct thing is noticed. One, some members of pteridophytes grow or alternate the life cycle as I had just discussed. But this particular life cycle is known as homosporous alteration of generation. In this particular case, homospores or isospores are produced, and these isospores on germination are producing the gametophyte. This gametophyte contains the archegonium and the antheridium which are being fertilized, again forming the sporophytic phase. But in some genus or in some members, a different alternation of generation is seen, that is heteromorphous alteration of generation. Here what we see, the sporophytic plant body are producing two different types of spores. One is the microspores. These microspores are minute, large in number and are produced within the microsporangia, whereas the megaspores produced within the megasporangia are larger and smaller in number. These microspores, as you can see, these microspores will be forming the male gametophyte, and the megaspores on germination will form the female gametophyte. Now each gametophyte will produce the archegonium and antheridium containing the spermatozoid or sperms and the egg. Syngamy will take place and a diploid zygote will produce, and this zygote will further again form the sporophyte, thus completing the life cycle. So here in alteration of generation, we saw that two distinct phases, one the sporophytic phase and the other the gametophytic phase, are alternating with each other, and in one case the chromosome is 2N and in the second it is only the half of the first one. So here we learned about the colonization or transition to land habit, the characters of the archegonites, and ultimately we talked about the alteration of generation.